Hi everyone, it's Jan from Jan Plans Things and welcome to my Plan With Me video for this week. So I'm starting off by just showing you the journal that I'm currently using. I'm still using the Archer and Olive journal, which is the journal with the 160 GSM paper. I find that it holds watercolor really well. If you guys are interested in seeing what materials I'm using for this month, I recommend you check out my monthly setup video because I've got a little bit more information about the tools that I'm using. So I'm starting off by using a Rotring Isograph pen. I like the isographs. They're a little bit, they're very even and thin. So if I want a consistent line, that's what I've been using. I've decided to do like a little food cart this time, like a little food cart truck. And I've obviously got Humphrey driving along, but you'll notice this time round there's actually two cats in the picture. That's because I've just adopted a second cat, and I'll be bringing her home I think in the beginning of March. So I'm really excited about that, and I hope you guys will enjoy seeing her in the video sometimes. Not on purpose ever, but you know, they do kind of just drop in anyway. And so this week I've got a little food cart in the corner with Humphrey serving some ice cream and Hermione, which will be her name, sitting at the top in between two pancakes. I've really been enjoying the food love theme that I've been doing, and I think it's nice and soft. I'm trying to keep the colors consistent with pink and everything, and then just have a little bit more consistent, like in terms of like palettes and everything. And I'm also keeping everything in the one line thickness, just so that I'm creating more variation with the paint instead of with the line work. I think if I was less lazy, I probably would vary the line work size a little bit, but I kind of wanted it to be quite thin so that the line work looks quite delicate, because I'm finding the illustrations quite soft this month. And what I've done is I've kind of just pushed the illustration off to the left hand side and then just had the simple grid for the rest of the days. And I think it will look quite well. I don't know why, but when I'm drawing like architectural things like houses or trucks, I always find that I want them together. I'm just showing you now my palette, and this is exactly the same palette that I used last week. And I'm just using like a ceramic plate. And the thing is, I'm showing you that because if you're doing a consistent color theme throughout the week, sometimes you mix custom colors. Like for example, the pink that I'm using now is custom mixed off my Holbein palette, and if you want them consistent time to time, it's always hard to mix the exact same color. So what I tend to do is I just leave my palette to dry, and then I can just re-wet it with a bit of water and it still works. And if you use something like ceramic, you can still pick it up off the plate very easily. So it means that you can reuse the paints quite often, and it makes it easier to match. So if you run out of paints, you've still got a little bit of it there, and then you just adjust and add extra colors to it to create more of it, and that just helps to keep them more consistent week to week. So I might end up keeping like one palette for the whole month because I'm doing the whole theme, and also means there's less wastage as well because I tend to use the entire lot. And I have a few of those plates floating around because when I'm doing commissions as well, the paintings might take a lot longer. So something like this takes me about like 45 minutes to an hour and 15 minutes to paint, whereas like a commission I might be spending 3 to 6 hours, and I do it after work. So I tend to have those plates as well with the paints, and I just let them dry out, and I can keep using them by just adding water again. So that's one of the things that I love about watercolor. You don't really have to waste the paint so much. In fact, when you're creating your own half pan palettes, what you're doing is just squeezing the tubes out into a pan and then leaving it to dry over a couple of days. So it's a similar technique, and a lot of paints are made to be re-wet, which works really well. With the drawing that I've been doing so far, what I've done is I've done a soft wash of colour. I'm trying to keep it with just very simple colours, so just the pink and the yellows, and then I slowly build up the intensity. So I'm actually using the same batch of colours there, but I just use less water. So the more water I add, you get a more like faint wash. and I use the paint wash at the very beginning just to lay down some color and know where I'm putting it. And what I'm doing is I'm darkening the bottom of the image just to ground it a little bit. So I'm out anything that I'm shading, I shade in like the bottom corners, because you kind of see when you see that in real life, like grit kind of attracts the edges of something first before going to the center. So I try to do the same thing. So I shade at the bottom and I work my way up or in the little corners, and I still use the same splotch of paint for everything, but I start off by diluting it a lot, and then just using the more pigmented versions of that same puddle of paint to slowly build up the color over time. I find that doing that type of shading, especially when it's more of a flat cartoon style, works really well because you don't have to sit there calculating where the light is bouncing off everything. So I kind of, when I'm doing something like this, I'll just kind of darken everything at the bottom and then pick one side to shade darker, because obviously the sun is coming from one direction, and that just helps keep the lighting within the scene a little bit more consistent. Sometimes a good tip is to borrow light and color from the surroundings, because the color kind of bounces off each other. But if you're using a quite limited palette, you don't really have to. It makes it easier for those colors to kind of act harmoniously together. So you know, one side being lazy, working out the colors, the other side it kind of looks just a little bit more tied together. I find using like a blend of colors actually quite difficult, and over time you'll get better at using a lot of colors. But if you're starting out, maybe just simplify it a little bit so you can kind of understand the different tones, especially with watercolor, that you can achieve with a few paints, and then just build up intensity. And and so what you can see me doing now is that I've already built up intensity with the same color, and now I'm going through with two grays. I've got a warm gray and a cool gray. The warm gray is sitting more on the yellow colors, and the cool gray I'm sitting on the glass. So I'm using that to tint everything and just create a little bit of depth to the image. And mainly because, you know, glass always looks a lot darker, but if you paint everything black, it looks a little bit too intense, especially when you're doing like a soft cake theme. So I'm doing that same trick that I showed you guys in the last video, where I'm just kind of like putting like a dappled grey in there to create that reflection of like trees and stuff in the overall image. So, and now what I'm doing is just with the detail brush, like a size 0 brush, I'm just going through and painting in a couple of extra details and just adding intensity where I feel like it's looking a little bit flat. So I added an extra detail with the canopy, so adding a stripe of more intense pink down the center, just a few little love hearts off to the side, because I was feeling that the side of the serving box was a little bit plain. And then just adding like smaller details like stripes and just shadows right adjacent to an object, because when an object is sitting above something, you'll find that the darker shadow is just underneath it. So just having that extra little line of grey really separates the image and makes it look less flat overall. Now this is the first week that I'm trying this type of layout, where I've got an illustration off to one side and still have a little bit of space for entries above. So I'm interested to see how it works out. I mean, for me, I'm finding with my bullet journal, the thing that I love the most is I kind of can be pretty loose about where I put the layout and kind of adjust it for myself. I find that the layouts that work best for me is when I leave quite a bit of space for each of the days, and you know, I don't mind if I bleed so much into the other ones. Like sometimes I don't, I prefer even not to write the tiles, but when I'm doing buildings, I feel like the page needs to be in a grid. I'm not quite sure why. I do actually draw and do entries over the clouds. I just find that the nice little wash of sky really makes the page really pop and is nice and soft. So I really like keeping it there. Yeah, so I don't mind like writing over the artwork when I need to. So this is, I'm just finishing up the tiles for my days. They're a little bit like Scrabble tiles. I'm pretty much okay with that, but I'm having a lot of fun with this type of spread. I'm just finishing off by adding a little bit of white because I wanted my sweets to look kind of glossy. because, you know, it looks more appetizing that way. But if you guys have any questions or something you'd like me to explain a little bit better, please leave me a message below and I'll try and do that in future videos. In the meantime, thank you very much for tuning in again, and I'm looking forward to speaking to you guys next time. Bye!